Hey everybody, welcome back to Seller Performance Solutions, or if it's your first time listening, welcome in. I'm in Seattle this week. The Amazon Accelerate conference is here for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I guess, the 17th through the 19th. So if you're listening to this and we've already had a conversation at Accelerate, it was great seeing you, of course. Next week, I'll do kind of a full rundown of the types of things people talk to us about, what they wanted help with, what they were worried about, what they were having trouble fixing. But for now, it's just kind of a conversation about what we anticipate will be hot topics that Accelerate based on what we've seen in the space. Lately, I know we've been talking with Leah here about her compliance cases, and there's wonderful fodder there for exploring things that might come up in terms of ASIN takedowns or suspensions. We've, of course, seen throughout the year restricted product ASIN level suspensions turning into account suspensions. But my biggest concern now is that there is such a long backlog of these KYC or know your customer video verifications. Some sellers are being forced to re-verify, which is not because of the Inform Act. Almost all of them have already passed the Inform Act. This is just know your customer stuff. The problem is now there are so many people who are going to be opening 3P accounts because their vendor account might be closed in roughly 6 weeks. And I'm sure that's going to be a big topic at Accelerate. I know people are going to be talking about it at the various booths with different Amazon teams. But what concerns me is that the appeals process, it's going to become like a get it right the first time type thing. If you think that you can just throw a few appeals in and then fix it later if they don't take it, don't expect that you won't have to get at the back of a long line of people who are stuck trying to do these video verifications, right?
Well, it's not just the video verifications. It feels like all of the teams are less staffed than they used to be, or busier than they used to be. Everybody's response time seems to be slower. Or, occasionally you'll get like a super quick response, and that's because it wasn't actually reviewed and they just click deny to get it marked off on their APIs.
Yeah. There's lots of appeals getting rejected without any, account health reps. Well, people are paying, most of the people we know are paying $5,000 a month for an SAS core rep. And those reps don't even really come back with viable insights into why something's been rejected. They say they can't find out. Account health reps almost invariably say that they'll guess for you or they'll review it and give.
Well, we're also hearing a lot more that there just aren't any investigator nodes. So it's not that they don't have access to it. It's that none were left, which indicates that either it isn't being reviewed at all, or it's just being denied, or it's being reviewed so quickly and haphazardly that they didn't have enough time to leave any notes as to why it was denied.
Oh yeah. This is the point I'm going to be making with people I speak with here this week, is that lots of rejections, very little info on why it's being rejected. That's the key pain point right now, because you can't appeal again unless you know why the first one was rejected. If it's just guesswork, then of course you're likely to get rejected again. And then of course, if people get rejected a couple of times without any information about why they were rejected, then they start writing to the old Jeff email and they start churning through email queues that are pretty saturated with people like them sending similar stuff. Then those start getting rejected and it just kind of gets worse and spins out of control.
So this is the thing that I never really understood about Amazon as a business. And I also have a business degree and I understand efficiencies and I understand the cost of things. And surely, I understand that they're trying to have minimum labor costs, but surely having people do their job correctly the first time would end up being a lot cheaper to them than every single process taking 20 to 30 touch points and them having to hire more and more people to handle that load.
Well, as we often say on this podcast, the first step is admitting that you have a problem. And we're not at the first step. We're at the 0.5 step, because they sometimes admit there's a problem through certain teams, certain ways, but there's no pan Amazon embrace of the concept of this has to change. This is totally dysfunctional. When it comes to teams like support and maybe to a degree account health, I think they're kind of resigned to this idea that they can be fixed because there's so much complaining about.
I'm not even talking about the lower teams. I mean, in terms of the higher level teams, like seller performance and compliance. I've watched them do with compliance what I am assuming is what happened with seller performance, where they had a fairly high level team at one point And then they decided to replace that team with a bunch of not very well trained, cheaper labor. And the quality of the work went down considerably.
Yeah.
And again, I understand why they would want to reduce labor costs. But my question is, does it actually reduce labor costs when you have to add more people because there's more of a backlog because they can't do things correctly the first time?
Forget about the labor costs. The current anecdotal or de facto channel for escalation is emailing people. So you would think they would be the most motivated to make things below them work better so that they wouldn't receive a full inbox every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And for a company that loves to track everything, they don't seem to track their own internal issues that we repeatedly see and repeatedly escalate. There doesn't seem to be any tracking of like, hey, this is actually a widespread issue. Maybe we should fix that.
Which they say they do.
It's just a one-off escalation. We fix that one seller's problem. Back to doing it the same way we did it before.
Right. So, I mean, I think events like this where sellers show up by the thousands and have access to Amazon boots and Amazonians, it puts people in a position where they have to answer for things in person. And often they will empathize with the seller without actually offering a solution to it. Kind of like, yes, I actually agree with you because I've experienced this internally. Mm-hmm. When I ask the same questions that you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, have asked, I get the same response. That's what's been interesting throughout this year. I've noticed whether I'm talking to other teams at Amazon, account managers, brand management teams, seller expansion people, it doesn't matter who, they say the same thing. Like, I'm with you. I've experienced the same frustrations you have, and it's going to take us time to figure out how to improve or correct this. The problem with that is we heard that a year ago in 2023. We heard that from people back in 2022 when we were doing our own conference.
Some of
for
the
Amazon
issues
brands.
We've been seeing and experiencing for 5+ years.
Well, so what that tells me is the pain points aren't strong enough for them to act or move things along because...
Yeah, for Amazon.
Right. You would guess that this is a hassle. It's just as bad for them as it is for you. They're motivated to move things along and find some progress, but they don't. And I guess the common excuse is that, well, they're distracted with so many other high-level things that don't involve sellers, that don't involve appeals, that don't involve listing takedowns. But no one's really complaining or screaming to the high heavens, hey, I need processes below me to work better so everybody doesn't complain to me. And also no one seems to be complaining about how this is costing Amazon so much money in commissions from taking down listings that never should have been taken down. It's not being reflected in their quarterly earnings. No one's complaining like you could have made another couple billion out of the marketplace sales. I mean, this never comes up.
I don't think those numbers are being tracked. I don't think there is an internal metric for how much money did we lose because we incorrectly removed an ASIN.
Yeah.
Which again, I just find interesting as a company that likes to track everything.
Or they justify, the removal was acceptable initially, pending more information. We got better information from the seller. We reinstated the ASIN.
I agree that sometimes it is better to take down the ASIN to get the additional information. The problem is that a lot of times the additional information is sent. The ASIN isn't reinstated because it never gets reviewed properly. So now you're looking at weeks or months of back and forth of lost sales and of employment expenses because people are having to review this internally.
Yeah. And again, I think it's not admitting that you have a problem because they're not going to track that unless they think that there could be a better way to do it. And Amazon's experience of sellers at this point seems to be sellers want to do it their way, not the Amazon way, and they're costing themselves these sales and creating these problems. Or sellers don't communicate well with us. When we ask them for certain things, they give us something different. And they're not willing to admit that they're not good at asking for what they want or need.
I mean, I'm not saying there aren't problems on both sides. There definitely are problems on both sides, but we also see this work all day, every day. It is not always the seller that is at fault.
Yeah, so there's that topic, which I'm sure will be addressed numerous times. I'm sure I'll have conversations about that all week long. And then there's abuse, right? We're heading into peak abuse season, where people are attacking each other, lots of crazy stuff going on. So I think this year and this conference more than others, people will be approaching Amazon teams, showing them. I mean, we've seen brands come to us with great data and great timelines and great tracking on changes made to their listings that shouldn't have been made, crazy attacks they've gotten from competitors. I've seen numerous cases where they've actually identified the exact competitor, reported it the right way to the right team, which 2-3 years ago, maybe they wouldn't have done. And Amazon just says, oh, we're going to send them a warning and that'll be it. Amazon's refusing to take action on abusers right now, which is a very curious situation. But I want to see what Amazon people have to say when they're confronted, whether it's a seller cafe appointment at the conference or just generally.
I'll be interested to see what the big announcement is that everybody gets excited about and maybe gets media attention and then never happens, which I believe last year was the escalation button.
The escalation button was 2
which
years
I think
ago.
was possibly, I was going to say, I think that was also the year before.
So that's 2022.
Which I saw once on one account and then never
Yes.
saw again.
Correct me if I'm wrong, dear listener. I believe that was 24 months ago now.
So I am excited to see what the big announcement that doesn't actually come to
For
fruition
sellers.
this year.
Yeah, we'll find
Many
out.
years ago, it was that brand registry would allow brands to completely control their listings, which kind of sort of happened.
Yeah. I think there's a different approach taken to us, consultants, service providers this year. Later today, I'm going to an event for service providers and consultants, and they're kind of kinder, gentler with us now and more receptive to ideas and wanting to communicate with us, hear our ideas, hear us out on pain points. So that's different from the past. I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out, because I think Amazon realizes there's a lot of agencies out there. There's a lot of consultants. There's a lot of people who are trying to help sellers fix things, because Amazon has lost interest in fixing some of those things. They've created an industry of people who are interested in fixing things. How interested Amazon is in separating the real consultants from the kind of poser types, or the actual experts from the imagined experts, we'll have to see.
I'm going to say, based on browsing the seller partner network, they're not that interested in separating those out.
We're going to find out. Maybe I'll report back on that next week to an extent. But I'm looking forward to it, just to see not just what's changed in the last year. I kind of know what's changed already. I sort of want to see what their plan is for Q4 into the new year, for not just enforcement, but letting brands do their thing, letting them sell instead of constantly looking over their shoulder. And are they planning fewer surprises? There's already been so many lightning strikes after years of Amazon saying, we're going to communicate better. We're going to have an account health assurance program. We're going to have all these bells and whistles that'll smooth things out so that you can expand and sell and do a better job of making your brand presence felt on Amazon. Those have been words and not necessarily deeds in the past. So I'm looking forward to see what they come up with to just reassure people that the road will not always be this bumpy. And at some point, maybe not everything you want will be provided by Amazon, but maybe meeting in the middle where you get some of those things and some of your life is easier. You're smiling. So I guess that means you don't think that's going to happen. But
well, so I know I am hard on Amazon, but I do also understand that they are in a position where they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Whatever they roll out, someone's going to be unhappy.
No, I mean, if they become brand friendly in certain ways that make most brands' lives easier, and they do fewer things that just benefit themselves. And of course, I'm not just talking about fees. I mean, we could talk about that for years. I just mean just the general how they communicate with you, how listings are taken down or threatened with takedown. Inventory management. There's so many things that could potentially go wrong for someone.
Well, and so that's the thing. I think a lot of the things that they've rolled out, I agree with in principle. It's just the way that it was actually rolled out that was the problem. Like, I can see that they are trying to fix things and that it was rolled out to solve problems.
Right.
It just doesn't always work as intended, unfortunately. And then particularly with takedowns, they fail to take down bad products and bad sellers, then they get a hard time. If they get too strict and take down good sellers accidentally, then they also get in trouble. And I get that this probably sounds weird because I was just like talking about how Amazon isn't good at this stuff. But they are in a position where they are huge, and no matter what they do, people are going to be unhappy.
But they have the resources to fix at least some of these things. Not
Well, I
everything
agree.
can be fixed at
Yeah.
once, but hopefully, like you said, they will at least express the intention to fix certain things that they need to fix sooner than later. And then we'll see, I'll report back if you're listening to this and we did not connect at Accelerate this week, or if you're listening next week to my roundup about it. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what conversations you had. Maybe some of them might benefit other brands in the similar position that you're in. Or what the hell, maybe we'll learn something new that we didn't learn at the conference. So always ready to keep an open mind. Thanks again for listening in. And Leah, I'll catch you next week.
Bye.